I'm number 3. I'm Los Tres Hombres, and I've been playing DKBC kickball for, this will be my 5th season. I was in a small bar down off of Santa Fe, and that night I went home and 3 luchadors came to me and said, "You will be a better kickballer if you hide the true anger in your soul by wearing a mask." The amount of fan mail and the amount of letters I would get from women all over this great country of ours would be too overwhelming. The power of the handlebar, I mean, I need a fucking seatbelt for this thing. I need a seatbelt for this mustache because, I mean, the women just flock to it, and I think I can't go out in public without having women completely rape me. So, it's not rape though, because they yell surprise. I was lucky enough to be picked up by the nerdiest team in kickball, the Natural 20s, and I'm gonna bring them all of my luchador spirit.
Have you ever seen Joe Phillips nude?
Yes. For me, I'm just about going out and trying to show the kids how to live a positive kickball life and not get herpes. That's the big trick of the DKBC, is not pick up herpes.
I'm Johnny. Most people out here know me as Scrawny Johnny for obvious reasons. I've been playing this my 4th year. I've been on some winning teams the last 3 years. Last year we made it to the boot and unfortunately lost 4-2. I loved it when I was a little kid, wanted to get back into it, so that's what brought me into it.
I love tequila a lot. We're changing, I think we should officially change my name from F-bomb to just F so I can be flamboyant too, because I don't cuss as much.
I think we're going to do good and have fun. And I'm personally going to make an effort to bring at least a pack of beer next time so that I can continue feeding it to people so they're not wandering around acting miserable while we're playing. Fucking drink, dude. We'll play 25% better with high morale while we're drunk.
Get it in! Go! Stay!
I got ran over and I got a cleat to the hand.
It didn't hurt, but then I touched my head and blood was sucking out.
Once we started playing kickball, when we would meet each other at the bars, we weren't even talking about bands anymore. We weren't talking about shows. There was no gossip. There was nothing. All we were talking about was kickball, coming up with like kickball strategies and figuring out like various players' like strengths and weaknesses and where they would be better suited on the field. And it was John Martin who first came up with the name DKBC. John Martin would make these flyers for the games, and he would come up with like crazy team names. One of them being Team Hot Lunch versus Team Sack Lunch. Years later, when we finally created the league, we had to come up with like the conference or division names, and when we came up with Hot Lunch and Sack Lunch, it was in honor of the 2 very first DKBC teams. Maury Middle School is located on 13th and Emerson in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Denver. Maury's baseball field wasn't locked and you could just walk into it, but it's elevated and fenced, and it's a small field. Almost any guy with any sort of kicking power could kick a home run almost at will, which meant that someone on who was fielding would have to go over the fence, out into the street, and fight traffic to get this ball back. At Maury Field, we had over 60 people showing up every week to play, which was too many people. I mean, we were having games where there was 30 people on each team. Well, after that initial jump in popularity, eventually people stopped playing. And we went from having over 60 people every week show up to weeks where we couldn't even get enough people to get one game going. And there were moments where I thought, you know, it's only a matter of time before the DKBC is dead.
You're looking fly.
So, tell us a little about yourself, Jess.
Well, I'm a beast, and I'm a DJ for Radio 1190, and I'm on the Radio 1190 team, and I'm just representing every day, all day. I went to 2 games last year because there were some cute boys who offered to give me rides, and then when the ride stopped, Jesse stopped, so. Last night was a shit show. It was Dance-a-tron, and I don't even remember dancing at all. I remember puking a lot, and I remember making out with everybody.
Morgan's a really good captain, and she has the right amount of like sexual tension with all of us, as well as like us being scared of her. It's perfect.
I think we're gonna make it to the top. I think we're gonna get the boot, not even kidding. Have you seen our tall Russian? He's bringing the heat. That's the thing about him. I don't even know if he's Russian. He's something. He spoke Russian the other day, and I liked it, so.
So we're gonna start doing competitions every week. The competition this week was to see how high we could kick the ball during the game. Dave won. Next week, I believe the competition's gonna be how short we can kick the ball.
Are you fucking single or what?
I'm not gonna be single for long if he comes back.
Lenny, is that a vagina on your vest?
Your vagina vest. Yeah.
It's the best vagina vest. Best vagina vest in DKBC.
So we're gonna take things as seriously as they are, because basically we're gonna be in the playoffs, and all that matters is that we make it to the playoffs.
There's a lot of drama in this league. There always is, you know. You got a bunch of 20-somethings or whatever in a league, you know, there's gonna be some stuff going down. Just a bunch of stuff, you know, stuff with other teams, stuff with each other, stuff with the umpires. People broke up with each other, people got with each other, people, you know, you name it. Just, it's kind of a, you know, it's like hipster soap opera.
I just don't think people don't know what to expect with this league, because on the outset it's a bunch of drunk people having a good time, but then when you play you don't realize how competitive people really are. And you get into it. I mean, you know, watch any game.
You know, so you want to go out there and win, but you're not going to be that person who's like, you know, making your players do wind sprints afterwards, or, you know, you're going home like throwing a ball until your hands bleed or something like that.
That boot's hard to get. I'd put it on my resume. Only certain people get that every year, you know? Like 200 plus people playing in this league, and not everybody's on a winning team, so. I was in the pisser, and Joe Phillips, the commissioner at the time, was standing next to me and asked me if I was going to play. And I said, absolutely. And then so the next year I played was the year he left.
So then I decided to leave, to move to LA. I told him I was leaving, and I told him we're gonna do kickball, but we're gonna do it right this year. And I laid out like all the things that we were gonna do, and we were gonna set up a league, we were gonna set up teams, we were gonna have a draft. Like basically, at that point, when I set that up, DKBC was almost dead. No one was coming. And I was like, this is it. This is how it's going to be. What I did was I found my guys. Like, I had a group of guys, and I found them, and I said, make this happen. And they did it. Like, they went out, and they made their teams. They found the people to play. The league was only going to work if I took all my best friends and best kickballers and pushed them out to start their own teams, to compete against each other.
Joe decided that we were going to be called the National 20. I didn't have a choice. He said, you're the captain. I said, no. He said, yes, you'll be at the draft.
Mark Hughes is the backbone of the DKBC.
He kind of put me in charge of like promotions and stickers and shit. And then he bailed and left me in charge. So ever since then, even though I haven't been in charge since the second year, people still treat me like I'm in charge, which is kind of awkward because I never like to overstep my bounds into the commission because somebody else needs to do it.
I would basically just come up with like ideas and not know how to implement them. Like, we're gonna do this. And then Mark Hughes would figure out how to make it work. Mark Hughes saved the DKBC. One situation we had was figuring out the fields. And I knew once we set up the league that we wouldn't be able to use Maury. It was just too small. So we'd already had the draft for the 2005 season. We already had our uniforms, we had our teams. We still had no fields, and I was freaking out. Like, I didn't know what we were gonna do. And I think it was Adam Lancaster ended up going further down south and finding Veterans Field. And like, we walked out, and I was like, yeah, this is perfect. Once we set up the league and we're playing at Veterans, there were individuals and teams that were not part of that core group that wanted to win and were competitive to a fault, and started exploiting some of our rules. Aaron Collins, who I'd met before, who was like a great guy, and you know, every time I go back to town, still a great guy.
You know what's really cool is talking about kickball at fucking parties.
But on that field, like, I wanted to punch his face in, because he was exploiting every one of these goodwill rules that we had like come up with. I spent literally 15 minutes pitching to him on one go.
What you gonna do? Who you gonna screw? I'll make you understand. Now who's fucking who? Maybe don't want my money. Maybe don't want my car. Maybe don't want my loving. So want me now. Go, come on. As you walk away, I say those words you say. Maybe it's a whole lie. I'm trying to live this way. Maybe don't want my money. Baby don't want my car. Baby don't want my loving. Don't want me now. I want me sexy. I want me sexy. I want me sexy.